This is the story of a king who did everything right, yet lost everything. After decades of success and a legacy of shattered idols, Josiah's life ended in the dirt of a battlefield as his kingdom began to dissolve. Josiah inherited a kingdom defined by the wreckage of his predecessor, King Manasseh. For 55 years, the nation had been steeped in a culture of systemic moral decay that was now woven into the very identity of Judah. Look into the Valley of Hinnom. In this arid, jagged geography, the residents of Jerusalem practiced the dark ritual of child sacrifice to the god Molech. Back in the city, the temple itself had been desecrated, converted into a center for the worship of celestial bodies and fallen spirits. This wasn't a minor lapse in policy, it was a total collapse of the national character. Josiah was stepping into a rescue mission where the institutional evil was so entrenched that survival was almost impossible. During a routine repair of the temple, workers found a copy of the long-lost Torah scroll. When the text was read to Josiah, he gathered the entire nation and personally read the words of the law aloud in the courtyard. Standing before the people, Josiah committed the nation to a new covenant, vowing to follow these ancient commands with his entire heart and his entire soul. He was attempting to steer a sinking ship. The question remained, could the radical devotion of a single leader actually stop the momentum of a century of rebellion? Josiah launched a physical war against the idols of Judah, initiating the most thorough purge ever recorded in the Hebrew Bible. We see his soldiers smashing stone altars and dismantling Canaanite worship. Josiah targeted physical symbols like this golden idol, ordering them ground into dust. He burned the wooden ritual poles and permanently desecrated the sacrificial sites in the valley to ensure the horrors practiced there could never return. His campaign reached the border city of Bethel, destroying a golden calf altar. This specific act fulfilled a detailed prophecy that had been spoken by a man of God 3 centuries earlier. This purge established a clear principle. True repentance requires the total removal of every competing influence, no matter how deeply it is rooted in the culture. After the destruction of the idols, Josiah turned his focus to restoration, organizing a massive national celebration of the Passover. Historians of the time noted that no king since the era of the Judges had celebrated the feast with such precision. Josiah became the benchmark for royal devotion. But the historical weight of the past remained. The divine judgment triggered by Manasseh's crimes was already in motion. This reveals a difficult truth. Even a perfect leader performing perfect reforms cannot always offset the catastrophic momentum of systemic evil. These ancient stone foundations at Megiddo mark the tragic end of Josiah's era. He was killed in battle against the Egyptians, and the kingdom he spent his life purifying immediately fell into the hands of a foreign power. The most righteous king in history ended his life in defeat, his sudden death triggering the total collapse of the nation he had worked so desperately hard to save. This tragedy exposes the limits of politics and law. When sin is woven into the fabric of a people, its destructive roots are too deep for earthly decrees to fully extract. Josiah's failure to save his nation through reform highlights a universal human need for a solution that exists outside of history and human effort. Josiah's Passover centered on the blood of the lamb, a ritual meant to shield the people from destruction. This event functions as a theological precursor to Jesus, whom the New Testament identifies as the Lamb who achieves a permanent spiritual rescue that earthly kings could not provide. The story suggests that ultimate redemption requires more than a policy change. It requires a divine substitute to address the weight of the past. Josiah's violent sweep through the high places of Judah reflects a life lived without compromise. It frames a reality where private idols and public policies are held to the same unyielding standard. We have to consider why Josiah fought so hard when he knew the prophetic doom of his nation was already sealed. He wasn't trying to strike a deal with God for a political victory. His obedience was a direct expression of his love for the truth, regardless of the historical outcome. In a world where we cannot control the final results, Josiah's life defines true faith. It is the choice to be fiercely loyal to what is right, and leaving the results entirely in God's hands.